Greetings and welcome to the Mount Rushmore podcast. And this has been such a great episode. I'd like to thank our sponsors, and I'd like to thank you, the listener, and we'll see you next week. This episode is about the Mount Rushmore of shortcuts. I just took a shortcut to the end of it, bypassing all the chitter chatter that we normally do. My name is Jeff, and I'm joined as always by my good friends Richard.
Hello.
And Michael.
Howdy.
Mitchard and Reichel debate and deliberate the most ubiquitous aspects of a variety of topics. This week, it's shortcuts. Who chose it?
That's my choice. Michael's choice.
Okay.
Me, the man.
Yeah.
I chose it. Well, for one particular, it's going to be one of my choices. It'll probably be my first choice, so I can get to it. But shortcuts are often interesting in terms of either what you kind of perceive them to be, whether something that you're like, this is just a quicker path to get someplace, or whether they are like a cheat in life, or something that one engages in to bypass the hardships in order to achieve some sort of glory. And or, you know, it could be anything. It could be anything to get from point A to point B without, or maybe point A to point C without going through point B first.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that they are kind of like, the idea of shortcut is kind of like, it can be pretty innocent, but it could also be kind of maybe naively innocent in that maybe you're fucking yourself up.
Okay. Awesome. This is a fun topic. All right. So Michael chose the topic, so Richard starts.
All right. So my first choice is kind of based on the concept that, at least in terms of actual physical shortcuts, like trying to get from point A to point B, that there is no such thing as a true shortcut anymore. Because we all have GPS, and we all kind of live by that. And we kind of just go whichever way GPS takes us. Mm-hmm. So even if GPS winds up taking us on a route through back streets versus the main road that we were going to take, we don't really think of that as a shortcut anymore. I don't think. We just think of that that's the route it's a route Google Maps told me to go, or Waze, so that must be the right one.
Yeah.
And it got me thinking about what, back in our day, back before GPS on phones, and everyone here in Los Angeles, at least that I knew,
I know what you're going to say,
had their trusty Thomas Brothers map. And that was how you got around traffic. As if you were stuck in traffic, you sat there and you had it in the passenger seat of your car, and you quickly tried to whip open to the right grid, right page that accompanied the correct grid on the map, and would sit there and trying to figure out, okay, I think that if I get off the 101 here at Lancashire, and then I can take this here and maybe go across the mountain, go over the hill this way. Yeah, that should be a shortcut. That's going to be easier than the 101. Now, whether or not it was ever actually faster than the 101, who the hell knows? Half the time you wind up getting yourself in worse traffic or lost or whatever. Where if you would have just stayed on the 101, you probably would have got there at just about the same time.
It is the 101 is exactly true. There is no better path than just being on, even if you're stuck in traffic, you're all the other things that get in your way, whether they're traffic lights and street signs and all that stuff. It's the exact same amount of time.
Yeah, because Riverside, Ventura, whatever you happen to be taking, it's just as bad. It's just as many people who have the same thought as you, which is, let me get off this freeway, and because I'm Joe Smart, I know how to get around this because I've got my Thomas guide.
Mm-hmm.
No, invariably it never worked out.
You know, it makes me think about shortcuts as being as things that are functions of the prevalence and emergence of time as something that people give a crap about. And I was talking with my sister the other day about the importance of time emerging after there's like industry, and the idea that haste makes waste, and we should all work hard, and the importance of labor. That's something that has existed for eons, but time is something that is kind of a 20th century, or I guess a 19th century, with the kind of the advent of railroads and things like that, is something that has become a little bit more important. And I think if you lived in Hawaii or Louisiana or something, and you were the guy who knew all the shortcuts, people just look at you and go, why? We don't do anything here. Just, but I find that really interesting. How in what eras and what milieu is a shortcut respected because it saves time versus places or eras where they just don't give a damn about it.
Yeah, I mean, we're certainly obsessed with faster, quicker, getting some point A to point B as fast as possible, versus, when the 110 freeway here in Los Angeles was built, it was built to go 45, 55 miles per hour. It's not built. Yeah, I mean, that's why when you get when you get on the stretch from downtown to Pasadena, which is the original stretch, why it's really windy and there's all those weird curves and blind corners and all that stuff, because you're not meant to take that going 70. And you wouldn't build a freeway like that anymore.
Richard, I guess I'll ask this question of Jeff too. Richard, have you ever, because I doubt, Jeff, you ever have, but Richard could have been. Did you ever get stuck in a car with our good friend Scott while he was engaged in something he has termed jazz driving?
Yes. It's exciting.
Yes. At some point...
please explain jazz driving.
Scott believed that he was very good at getting from place to place in his car, and he wouldn't necessarily take the direct route there, but he would engage in an effort to get there as quick as possible through what he called jazz driving, which is basically trying to find the secret way that he thought that he knew was the best way. And it's just, you're just hanging on for dear life in the back seat of the car.
Is this zigzaggy, like, kind of?
Yeah, he's just going like from street to street to get from, the west side to the east side, or north side to the south, to the valley, to wherever. And it's just like, you're just like, can we just get on the 101? Just bear with the traffic for a little bit.
If you've ever played the game Crazy Taxi, very similar to that.
I love it. Shortcuts in other processes like editing, shortcut keys. If you're the guy who knows all those things, you're the best editor there is. That's a real important thing. All right, shortcuts, cool. All right, to Winfield.
Well, my first choice is the one that kind of inspired this thought, which is, so my company had recently moved to a new office. And, when you're in a new office park, you're kind of unsure of where your office is initially located. So you park your car in the parking lot and you're kind of looking around. And the thing that I noticed initially was you're walking along the sidewalk, and obviously there's a part where you make a right turn and it's headed to the sidewalk, but in between where you're making a right turn, there is grass, or there is a bush. And invariably you're going to turn right, but there's this little walked path through the shrubbery that has been created by humans who are just trying to shave off 1/10 of 1 second of their life. And this is something that I remember seeing literally every place that I've worked, every college camp, my college that in UCSB. I just recall all the little paths that were laid out, and all of the manicured lawns and grasses and trees and bushes and everything. There's always just some path that shaved the smallest amount of time, that have just become like the Native American trail that you take through your college or your work campus to get to someplace half a second faster.
Yeah.
And I have found that I do the same. There's a little gap between a bush where my car is parked, and I was like, well, I'm just going to go through there. And I thought, oh God, how many other people have taken this? It saves 3 seconds instead of going around to just cut right through this bush. And this thing is just going to perpetually widen up and create and it's just going to grow naturally and expand. And I just thought of all the different places around a city or a school or a workplace where someone has just like, I'm saving 3.5 seconds, just trampled over all of this like limes, all of the bushes and grasses. And I don't know, that was what made me think, oh, this is what a useless shortcut for someone to take. But then again, so many people have had that same thought that it's enough. It's enough for people to do this thing.
Yeah. I have, speaking of shortcuts, my perceived shortest route walking to school as a kid was very different than the route I took on the way home. Like it should be the same, right? Unless somehow traffic changed or there was a street that had more whatever. But it was just how I perceived it to be. On the way home, I just didn't want to walk that way. It seemed shorter. Coming from school. Have you heard of the term boreens? The paths that livestock cross or create on their way to watering holes and things like that. And in some cases, they eventually just become roads because is the most heavily traveled path. I think it's a Gaelic term or something. So it would be the path that cows might take or sheep to go to a creek or something to drink water. And then eventually, and that might have predated,
like
cars.
A native culture.
Yeah. But when the people come around with their wagons and their cars and things, they just make those into streets because
they're already flat enough.
Yeah, they're already flattened. The animals already found the shortest way.
Some woolly mammoth has already come through here and like squished it down. They're like, okay, well, let's put a cart on this bitch.
Hold on a second, guys. Hold on, I got a call. Let me just 1 second.
Okay. It's showbiz. That's showbiz calling us. Yeah, do you have a podcast maybe where you guys rate the top 4? Does it ramble?
Talk about useless. Yeah. No, we got it. You got kids interrupting? You got cats something outside?
Yeah. It's not diverse, is it? Nope.
No,
it's 3-way.
The anti-diverse. Reverse.
Reverse.
Oh man, literally, you should have seen this kid's eyes when he was playing Jurassic Park, the shooting game. He was just like, and he was really interested in like the AMC Walking Dead zombie game, and we're like, no, what you can murder is dinosaurs. You can blow them to bits with this gun that freezes them and then shatters them into a zillion pieces. But what you cannot play is the zombie game.
The zombie game
where you potentially freeze them.
Come on.
Yeah.
What if it was zombie? Is it the zombie that you don't like? If it was the zombie T-Rexes, would that be bad?
He can be a little like he watched Star Wars tonight, right? And for the longest time, he's had this fear of the trash compactor scene.
Oh yeah.
But we found out tonight that he wasn't afraid of the scene in total. It was just the scene where like the Dianoga comes in and pulls Luke under the water.
Yeah.
He's like, I want to watch it where they're getting crushed. Like, oh, okay.
I'm fine with that.
All right, let's give Richard a couple seconds. Unmute Richard.
How about that? Sorry about that, guys. I had an Instacart order and they couldn't get through the gate.
Oh, the wild dogs.
Yes, the hyenas that we have patrolling the compound.
What's that? What's the big gate that comes down in a castle that just?
Yeah,
the portcullis.
You have to hand crank it. Somebody. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so it's. Wait, is it? Are we done with it?
Richard was finishing up a thought with something, but I don't remember what it was. Or maybe you were. We were talking about elephants trampling the ground.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's how. So sometimes, hey, I guess animals. Would an animal even think that's a shortcut, or do they think that's just going to get the food and the water?
Yeah, I don't think animals think like that they're Billy Keane from the Family Circus taking a circuitous route. They just go wherever they're going to go.
All right. Well, that's a fun reference. Speaking of Billy Keane, what's your next one, Richard?
All right, my second one is it's a quick one. It's just a little, almost like a life pro tip as a shortcut. If you ever have a chance to get the pre-chopped veggies instead of having to chop your own veggies, oh my God, what a difference this makes in cooking. I don't know how many times I've sat down and looked at a recipe and it says to dice 3 onions. And it's just like, great. This is the part of cooking that I hate, is all this prep work, busy work, chopping bullshit. So I think if you always have a store instead of having just the onions or tomatoes or celery or whatever it happens to be, if you go out and get the pre-chopped veggies that come in little clamshells, that will save you not just so much time, but so much headache. And it makes cooking so much more enjoyable. It's probably, to my mind, other than having actually sharp knives versus dull knives, it's the one thing you can do to make your cooking experience exponentially better.
That's funny. Oh, go, Michael. Yeah.
That's right. We have a one in particular recipe that we make is like this butternut squash, cherry tomato sauce, kind of red pepper thing that's just delicious with like a Parmesan chicken thing. But the one aspect of it that I will not do is the butternut squash and try to peel that goddamn vegetable.
Right.
And 100% will go buy the 1.5 pound pre-chopped butternut squash. And whenever I see it's not always in like our Ralph store, but if I see it in like another grocery store, I'm like, I gotta get it. We're making it this week.
Yeah,
because it's here and I see this thing and this has driven our purchases.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a game changer when you have the ability, when you see something that you know you're going to use and it's pre-chopped. Jump on that.
Yeah.
You guys are cooking, which is more effort than I want to expend. But it also sounds like what did that case is a shortcut is just in this case, there's multiple tiers of effort there. And this shortcut is just kind of helping you get to the fun part quicker. So
yes.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's helping you get to the fun part quicker. It's cutting down on time. Mm-hmm. You may spend $3 versus 50 cents if you got the same amount of actual just onions. But is your time worth an effort worth $2.50? I think it probably is.
Mm-hmm. Did you go for the pre-chewed food too? Like that's
semi pre-chewed. I do want some mastication happening.
Somebody gummed on it. They had an old person gum on it.
just wetted it down for me so it's nice and moist.
Winfield, what's your second cheat?
My second choice is a personal thing that happened to me. It's the German word for shortcut, which is abkürzen. And a number of years ago, I was visiting my mom and my stepfather in Austria. And my mom is a voracious hiker. She's always been the most fit person that I've ever experienced or will ever know. I think I've talked about how, in her mid-30s, she just decided that she was going to start bodybuilding, and within like a year and a half became like Miss Natural Olympia, or I forget all the different titles that she'd won, but she's just a very active, tiny woman. And at some point I was visiting when I was like 18, 19 years old, I think, a summer of college, and I hadn't seen her in a couple of years. And we were going to go on this hike, and we went on a lot of hikes and a lot of walks. And she lives in the kind of Austrian Alps sort of area of Austria, kind of borders kind of Italy a little bit. And we were just walking up this one gigantic goddamn hill. And there was like a road that we were following to get to the park. And she said, well, might not have been her, but it might have been my stepdad who said like, well, let's take a shortcut. And instead of going started winding up this road that they used to take literally these gigantic cows up and down these roads, it was like, well, let's just go up the hill directly. Maybe it's a bit more strenuous, but it'll take, a third of the time rather than winding around. And I was like, okay, let's do this. I'm 19 years old. I'm vigorous. Oh, but the only thing you have to do is you have to crawl under these cow wires. And I'm like, what, cow wire? and like electrified fences. And of course, get under the first one, fine, go up the hill, and it's a 35-degree angle, and then try to climb under this cow wire to get to this next one, and immediately get shocked.
Oh no.
And just voltage of wire that is used to like keep cows in line. And it was just like, this is the worst thing we've ever done. I can't believe I got shocked trying to save like a few minutes of spending quality time with like my mom and my stepdad hiking up a mountain. And like I listened to this guy who just told me, let's just do this. And so for the rest of the trip and for the rest of my life, I've had this image of Abkürzen, of any time you just want to make like this ridiculous shortcut that there's a little bit of danger in it too. There's like literally on each side of the road was like this cow wire. And of course, on the way back down the hill, well, let's just do it again. We crawl under these things, and then we end up like sliding down this hill in like cow shit. It's just disgusting. Or I did, at least. I don't remember if anybody else slipped and fell in this entire mountainside of like cow poop and dung, and you're just like, I feel so awful. I was shocked going up, and I'm shit on going down. And it's just like, just take the roads. Just stay on the path.
So how much of a life insurance policy did your mom and stepdad have on you?
That's a very good question. It was in euros, so I don't know. I don't know what the conversion was. But I don't know. Just forever shortcut and this German words in my head someone's trying to tell me something.
I know you have described yourself as somewhat of an indoor kid. Were you challenged? You sound like you were enthusiastic to go out on this hike to begin with.
No, I'll say this. Ever since I was like 12 or 13 years old, I would go on these super long walks with my mom and my stepdad, like in the valley, like after school, like coming home out of like a junior high. We'd go on walks through the Studio City, North Hollywood Hills, and our walks would be 2 to 3 hours long.
Wow.
So I have tremendous calves. At the time, at least I did. I was always in decent shape, at least when I got into no musculature. It didn't work out at all. But like I knew what a walk with my parents would entail. So it's not like this was anything too out of the ordinary, because we'd go up. I don't know if you live in LA and you walk up like any part of like the hills going over into Hollywood, like the Donna Paquita or Donna whatever, just these hills that are on like an 85-degree angle, and you're walking them using grappling hooks. Mm-hmm. I felt like so.
So I'm not gonna ask for a shortcut here. I'm gonna go through all the halftime spiel, which is imploring you to share the podcast with the
oh my God. It's John Machina, the world's fastest talker. He's going to start talking about micro machines.
So now Richard's going to let us know his third.
All right. My third choice is video game shortcuts.
Oh,
cool. And very specifically the warp pipes in Super Mario Brothers.
Also my third pick.
Whoa. Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah, wow. I just remember how much I desperately wanted to beat Super Mario Brothers when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And you kind of learn that lesson about the pipes and how it can get you hit the right pipe, it can get you pretty much straight to the finish line. And so I did it, and I felt good about myself. And then you say, hey, I beat Super Mario Brothers. Did you use the warp pipes? And there's like this just wall of shame kind of comes over you. You're like, yeah, I did. Okay, that doesn't count.
What?
You're right. And then you have to go and try and beat it the real way, quote unquote. And it's just like, if the people who made Super Mario Brothers didn't want you to use the warp pipes, they wouldn't put them there. It's not my fault that somebody figured this out and kind of spread it through. God knows how they got spread when we were kids. It wasn't like you could go on Reddit and see a shortcut list or something like that. It was just some kid at school found out and then told somebody else, and next thing you know, every kid at school knows which warp pipe goes to what level.
You'd have to have like a subscription, which I did, to the Super Nintendo magazine, or not the Super Nintendo, but Nintendo
Power.
magazine,
Nintendo Power.
Yeah, for sure. This is on my list because there was a time that my good friend Eric, who lived across the street, who wasn't allowed to have a Super Nintendo or a Nintendo. He wasn't allowed to have a video game system, although he was allowed to play video games on a computer at any time he wanted to.
Huh. He couldn't have a console.
He had like an Apple II. He had like an Apple II, and then he just constantly got his dad's hand-me-down. Like he got a 286, then a 386, then a 486. Like everything. Like he just got his dad's when his dad would upgrade.
So what I'm hearing is he could play video games, but they all had to be typing tutor.
Yeah, we did a lot of whatever that Scorched Earth we played a ton of. But I remember at some point we were in a hurry to get someplace with his parents, but I told him that I could beat Mario Brothers in like 5 minutes. I don't know if it was exactly 5 minutes, but I remember just blasting through, going to World 1-1, then 1-2, then taking the warp pipe from 1-2 to 4-1, then going to 4-2, then going to 8-1, and just running through this thing for us to get to who knows what. We're probably going to like Swenson's. We're probably doing something with his little brother, or I don't know, but like it was such an important like speed run type thing. We had to do this one thing so we could just go with his parents someplace to go get dinner at like 5 o'clock at night or whatever. But like, yeah, I don't need to play all the really hard levels of Super Mario Brothers. Like, I don't need to deal with the Hammer Brothers. I don't need to deal with all that swimming bullshit.
Yeah.
Or like those fish that fucking fly out of the ocean and land on your head. I don't need that shit. No, thank you. Bowser's hard enough with the fire and all his fucking flames coming after me. Lava. Asshole.
It was not too long ago, a friend of mine and I did this zombie run in, where was it? Temecula or something like that. And we did it during the day. There's all these people dressed up like zombies. Did it during the day. So zombies who are clearly college students, with ketchup on their shirts during the day are not very scary. And we'd both signed up for it, but just weren't in the mood for it that day. But we did want to not go. So there's all these mud obstacles, and we just kind of ran around the mud obstacles. And it was we got done in record time. But yeah, we took all the fun out of it for sure. All right, well, hey, Warp Pipes, Mario Brothers, that'll probably be on the final four. So then it's going to be Winfield letting us know his fourth one.
Oh, okay. My fourth choice, obnoxious shortcut life lesson warnings.
Oh.
While I was looking for the subject and kind of trying to find any like thing interesting, I came up with Robert Altman shortcuts, and then I kept coming up with all these different quotes from like anonymous writers, just warning about the dire effects from writing. And the one that stood out was J.R.R. Tolkien from the Fellowship of the Ring, with shortcuts make long delays. And like, your book is 1,000 pages long. Like, obviously you're not into taking shortcuts in writing. But then I just found a ton of other like inspirational shortcut type, and they're all like credited to like unknown. Forget shortcuts, work for it. The only shortcut that was do you know who said that? Unknown. Here's another one. The only shortcut in life is hard work. Anonymous.
I thought that was said by the cat that was hanging from a branch.
Always look for shortcuts with limited intelligence. And I just thought, boy, there is just an industry of like just trying to be so self-aggrandizing and like God, just so magnanimous about like not taking shortcuts, when it's like, you know what? God, get over yourself. Anti-shortcut people. You people are living a life that is way too hard. Are you writing this stuff? Are you writing this stuff out in pen and ink, dipping it into a quill? Are you making the ink yourself? Are you like taking the feathers off of a bird and then fastening them down and then making the ink somehow? and then taking the pulp of a tree and then squeezing it out and running it through a thing. No, you've
unless you're from Portland, in which case I believe that's how all school kids have to write.
Well, do you feel like there's some of the topics we have different interpretations, and in developmental when you sometimes in doing art, we can evade actually becoming artists by taking the easy way to do it, or not challenging ourselves or developing ourselves. And it sounds like that's what they're really talking about. But I don't know, have you ever seen those videos of where Disney used like the same reference material for the bears dancing around with each other?
Yeah,
you could tell that they've taken a shortcut to get to something where
so someone else has already drawn it.
Yeah, somebody else.
They're all these cats are dancing. Yeah. We need to draw more cats dancing. We got it.
Yeah, I imagine too. Michelangelo kind of comes in for the final polish on a lot of those sculptures you see there. Put some muscles on him. Make sure his biceps are really jacked. All right, I'll come in at the end, chip my name on the side of it. All right, Richard, what's your final one?
All right, so you kind of mentioned being on a course and deciding to kind of avoid the hard stuff and do the easy stuff. And I had started thinking about, in most cases, taking a shortcut, a route, point A to point B, and finding a faster, quicker, shorter route to do that is completely acceptable. The one time when it's probably not is if you're running the Boston Marathon.
Ah, okay.
And that's what happened in 1980 when a woman named Rosie Ruiz came out of nowhere to shock the racing world by winning the Boston Marathon in a course record time. And no one had ever heard of her. She wasn't one of the favorites. And no one could figure out, how did this unknown woman come out of nowhere to win the Boston Marathon? Well, turns out she took the subway to about 1.5 miles from the finish line, popped out of the crowd, and jogged the final 1.5 miles ahead of her competition.
I love it.
Rosie Ruiz had qualified for the Boston Marathon by running in the New York City Marathon and allegedly finishing 11th. She also turned in her application for the New York City Marathon after the cutoff date for the race, but she claimed that she was dying of brain cancer, so they decided to let her slide.
Oh, God. What a horrible person.
Yeah, she basically got done with the race, and they gave her the laurel that you win for, just like with the horses. They give you like a laurel for winning the race. And right away when they started interviewing her, like everyone knew something was up. She wasn't pouring sweat. Her legs weren't like as muscly as the other racers. She was holding a beer. No, that last part she wasn't doing. But she didn't understand basic concepts like intervals and splits that runners things that runners kind of know by heart. Didn't, when they asked what kind of training she did, she just said, "Well, I just ran a lot." Just all this stuff that if you were an elite runner, you wouldn't know that. Yeah. And her stress test results they took after the race she had a resting heart rate of 76, and most marathoners it's in the 50s or lower.
Wow.
And it turns out that a couple of Harvard students wound up reporting that they saw her run out of the crowd on Commonwealth Avenue about 0.5 mile from the race. And a freelance photographer remembered seeing her on the subway and going with her to the race and kind of losing her when they got to the actual race course itself. So it was this big, huge investigation. She wound up getting obviously getting disqualified from the race. And her name is now synonymous in running world with someone who takes a shortcut to try and win a race, which is a relatively common thing, unfortunately. It may not be as extreme as that, but guys or gals taking a shortcut, taking a direct path instead of rounding a corner, doing stuff like that. they have to have sensors now, so you hit different checkpoints to try and make sure that people don't cut things off. But she was the original, or at least the most infamous shortcut taker in road racing history.
I didn't know that there were. I thought now there's so much electronic observation that one could be very easily observed to cheat, but I guess not if you're doing trail running or some things where you're off in. They can't cover a whole marathon with the camera all the time.
Yeah, apparently it's really common in ultra marathons.
Okay,
where you're running the same course like 20 laps or 50 laps or however long you're going. That someone might just sort of like go around the sensor and then wait a little while, then come back again around it instead of running the whole course. It's a whole thing. But yeah, it's now, according to a friend of hers later on, said that she admitted that she did it, but thought she was going to come out and finish somewhere in the top 10. She wasn't planning on actually winning the race, but that she accidentally came out ahead of everybody.
What a weird.
Which is just, if you're going to go to all the trouble to try and like cheat at the Boston Marathon, at least know where the other runners are so you can ease into whatever spot you think is good. Like, and what's the point of finishing 10th?
Yeah.
I get it if you're trying to win the race and get the prize money and all the attention. But if your real intent was to try and finish in the top, 10th or 15th or 20th or whatever, that seems like that's just a lot of work for a low amount of reward.
Yeah. And also she's revealing she's got weird principles. Like, oh no, I never meant to cheat that way. I only meant
I didn't mean to cheat that much.
It's just she's still cheating.
I only meant to take a little bit of steroids.
Yeah. Wow, what a trip. Rosie Ruiz. It does sound like a character from it does sound like a Cabbage Patch Kid or something.
It does a little bit.
And later on she became the Boston Marathon bomber, right? Didn't she? Okay, we'll move on to the.
You don't believe that's correct?
Where we're not going to take a shortcut. We're going to list off the winners. This is a bit fun topic. Let's go with Warp Pipes, Mario Brothers, just because we all both said it. And then I really thought that was a fun. I learned a lot about you, Michael, in your story about the physical shortcuts and getting stuck and shocked by the cow wires.
Thank you.
Thus, a superhero is born. The high voltage from the wires mixed with the cow dung that had created a staph infection.
The electric moo is here.
Yeah. And let's go with pre-chopped veggies.
Yeah, good.
And let's go with boy, this is real tough. This is real tough. I'm gonna go with the Paths Through the Shrubbery because it's a social commentary. This has been Mount Rushmore of Shortcuts. I, as always, am Robert Altman.
I'm Julianne Moore without any pants.
Nice.
I'm Michael.
Never bites.
No shortcut for me.